Welcome back to the morning show. I'm Biola Alabi. Kemi Da-Silva Ibru is a specialist obstetrician and a gynecologist with a medical background that extends to public health. She has been in private and public practice for over 10 years, where she spent most of her time working with organizations addressing issues of gender-based violence, rape and trafficking of young girls and women in communities throughout Lagos. This identified needs has led her to the founding of Women at Risk Foundation, WARIF. Dr. Da-Silva Ibru is with me today to tell us about the work she is doing at WARIF, the worrying state of gender-based violence, and her growing advocacy role in addressing the trafficking and sexual assault of young women. It is my honor to have and welcome Dr. Da-Silva Ibru into the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Biola.
One of the things that was really worrying when I started to look up what you're doing and the work you're doing is actually the statistics on the issue of gender-based violence, which is that 1 in 4 women in Nigeria experience some sort or some form.
One episode of violent sexual encounter by the time she reaches the age of 18.
How, why, and what should we know about this?
Well, essentially, I mean, this is a problem that's apparent, but it's a problem that's always been. As you clearly stated, the statistics that we work with, and these are 2015 reports, do tell us the 1 in 4 statistics. They go further to tell us that 70% of that statistic actually have a repeated episode of a violent sexual encounter.
Wow.
And this is just with girls. With boys, the statistics is 1 in 10 boys. And if you look at Nigeria as 50% of us being women, and we're a relatively young country, that's a significant number of young girls and women that tragically have had these sexual encounters.
So tell me about WARIF and the work WARIF is doing, because obviously when you hear statistics like that, we know that there's
a reason why we need to have a WARIF.
Yes.
So WARIF is the Women at Risk International Foundation. I incorporated the foundation in October of 2016 in response, as you said, to this high incidence of rape, sexual violence, and trafficking of young girls and women in our communities and across Nigeria. And WARIF does this by implementing effective initiatives that are target-oriented, they're measurable, and they affect both intervention as well as preventive measures in addressing the problem. So my background is obstetrics and gynecology, and that's my specialty. And so for the last 10 years, I've been addressing this issue in my clinical capacity. And I've been seeing girls in my practice and treating them as best as I could. And last year, in my opinion, I felt, I needed to do more, and I needed a vehicle to address the issue, hence my incorporating the foundation. The first initiative for me was the most logical one, being a first responder. I opened a rape crisis center in Yaba, and this is the WARIF Center. And this is a center that's a walk-in facility to all women in need. It's open Monday through to Saturday from 8 to 5, as well as all public holidays. And it's a warm, safe environment where we have full-time staff that address the medical needs of these women. We also partnered with the Washington, D.C. Rape Crisis Center, and so we're able to offer them psychosocial counseling as well. And then we address their social welfare needs, because Nigeria, sadly, is not a welfare country. And the narrative is familiar. Many a time, the perpetrator is a family member or someone that's well known to this young girl or woman. Could be a husband.
When you're saying young women, young girls, can you give me a sense of...
How old?
Yes, what age range?
Well, the youngest that I've seen is age 2.
Whoa.
So
please tell us, what does that mean when you're seeing a 2-year-old?
Well, clinically, I mean, sadly, I was called in to see a case where she'd been abused by a family member, and she needed clinical attention, medical attention.
And this is sexually abuse?
And this is sexual abuse. WARIF primarily deals with sexual violence and sexual abuse of young women and girls. The oldest that we've seen is age 79, so it cuts across all ages. Hence, we use the term young girls and women.
So do you think violence is against women, sexual violence is on a rise in Nigeria, or is it that it's been reported more? Like which one is?
So now we have challenges with data, as with all other aspects of healthcare. But we do see a rise in the reporting, like you said, and we also have the benefit now of social media. And so we have more and more blogs, we have more and more dialogue about the problem. With regards to the statistics, I couldn't tell you whether it's a rising trend, but it's clearly significant. And so a combination, I believe, of the cases that are apparent, as well as perhaps better reporting or wider reporting, now we seem to have a spotlight on the problem and more people are discussing it.
So one of the things I want to do is ask you a couple of questions, especially about WARIF and how is WARIF, because yesterday we were talking to someone who has worked a lot in building sustainable systems around non-government organizations.
Right.
How is WARIF currently being funded? What type of things can people do? Can people volunteer? Tell us what WARIF needs and how.
So WARIF is a non-profit, so we rely solely on donor funding from organizations, grants, and private individuals. With regards to the challenges we face, clearly funding is a huge challenge. Sure. It's a daily worry. Sure. We are hoping that we're able to benefit from existing grants that are available in the NGO space with these concerns, especially in the gender-based violence sphere. And we're trying to implement CSR, hoping that our mandate aligns with organizations that apparently are available. But
this is really important for organizations, because if 50% of the population is women and we want women to be economically empowered, sexual health is really a big part of them. So sexual violence has to be addressed.
And that's the point we make. I mean, it does, as you said, it adds to the social development of our nation, economic growth. I mean, it starts with the woman, but then if you strip away her very essence, you know, you strip away her security, you strip away her trust, then it affects her family, and then it affects the community she serves. And then by that token, the nation, and as you said, social development and economic growth.
So I know we're coming to the end of our interview, but what I wanted to do was also ask you, how can people support other people in the communities? How do we recognize that there is sexual violence happening, and what can we do about it?
We need to pay attention, and we need to strip ourselves of that bystander mentality of, well, it's not happening to me and mine, and so therefore I'm not interested. We need to ask questions. When it comes to a child, you need to believe your children. When your child comes to you with a story, perhaps, or a concern about an adult, we need to pay attention. We can't continue to disregard when stories are brought to us. And because perhaps the adult is someone that's well known, perhaps in the community, then that sort of lends to the authenticity of whether...
Well, that's also an issue we've had with especially religious leaders, authority leaders, teachers. So it's really important for young women and children to feel empowered to report these.
Precisely.
And do you give people that education?
Yes, we do. In terms of just social advocacy work, we're pushing the agenda. We're here in wonderful platforms like this. We're in the printed media. We're on all our social media platforms. And we're also addressing prevention through education.
Wow.
We're looking at the secondary schools. And we're looking at introducing a program known as the WARIF Educational School Program into these schools to change the mindset, the existing mindset of the average adolescent boy and girl child.
Yes.
And hopefully prevent that boy from being a perpetrator when he becomes of age, or that girl sadly being a survivor of abuse or rape.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really want to have you back, because I really want to talk more about trafficking next time you come back, because this is also a huge issue that is being addressed not only locally but globally. But once again, thank you so much for the work you're doing with WARIF. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to having you again.
I look forward to coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us on the morning show here on Arise News. Fauzi will be back shortly after this break.